from a an Arsenal fan that I watch on TikTok. He's actually from London and all that fun stuff. And he made a video about, these aren't the same old Americans. He's like, these aren't the same Americans that we laugh at and that we used to laugh at. And he goes into how they don't even call it soccer and all that fun stuff. But he goes, there's horrible PR surrounding the U.S. men's national team. And that's completely
Yeah.
right. I would agree to that extent. But at the same time, the reason is not that the people that are running the U.S. men's national team PR are bad at their job. It's simply, what are the major sports outlets out there? The ESPNs, the Foxes of the worlds, the NBCs, and outside of a couple hours a weekend, a week on NBC, you might see a Premier League game, maybe. But if you look at all those news outlets, well, not news outlets, sports outlets, I should say, they don't push the soccer narratives. They don't push the U.S. men's national team narrative. The U.S. could beat Spain 5-0 in a friendly, and it would not be talked about. That's why you come to Inside the Game and we talk about that stuff. But they don't
Yeah.
actually talk about all that stuff. And obviously, there's soccer's not the main sport and all that stuff. But like, what do you have to do to watch the MLS? You have to watch it on Apple TV. You need subscriptions. How do you watch Premier League games? You need subscriptions on Peacock. How do you watch Champions League games? You have to have subscriptions on Paramount Plus. Very rarely will you see a Premier League game, maybe one game a weekend on NBC. Maybe one game. Maybe. And during football season, you ain't going to see one.
Yeah.
So you
Right.
need a whole bunch of extra stuff to actually try and watch this stuff. Whereas if you were to watch college football, college athletics, you just go to ESPN, some on Fox, some on
Yeah.
ABC. What do you do to watch the NFL? CBS, Fox, ESPN, NBC, all that fun stuff. How do you watch the NBA? Well, the
Mm-hmm.
NBA can be a little tricky. There's some other games
Mm-hmm.
on NBC, baseball and hockey. You can find that stuff relatively easy. So you have to go out of your way to go find soccer stuff, find Champions League games, find Europa League games, find everything's on ESPN Plus too. I didn't even realize that FA Cup and Carabao Cup. They're on
Mm-hmm.
ESPN Plus. So that's the reason why it's bad. It's not promoted. Why do you think that there's every single day on ESPN there's a discussion about the Lakers should do this, the Lakers should have done this, the Knicks do this. Why aren't the Lakers doing, or why aren't the Knicks doing this? The Cowboys this, Alabama that. Like, because that's what they push out on everyone, and that's what the biggest fan bases are. Not to say that there aren't soccer fans in America, because there 100% is. But none of
Yeah.
those sports teams are being pushed out onto national levels. Like even the Pat McAfee show. The only reason Chris Richards was on that is because the U.S. asked McAfee if Chris Richards could be on the show. Not that, what,
Yeah.
let's invite
Yeah.
Chris Richards on the show. No, U.S. went to Pat
Right.
McAfee and said, hey, can you bring Chris Richards on the show, just saying that he's U.S. Men's National Team Player of the Year? And Pat McAfee's like, yeah, for sure. But Pat didn't ask for that. They asked him. So
Yeah.
again, you could maybe make the argument that U.S. did a good job on that PR, which they did. But no, there's
Yeah.
horrible public relations when it comes to like soccer, U.S. Men's National Team, Pulisic, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. And the thing that's going to bother me, I think, the most is that leading up to the World Cup in the coming months before it actually starts here in the United States and in Canada and Mexico, you're going to see those media outlets begin to pile on, begin to be like, okay, now we're all in on soccer. Now we're all in on what's going on. Now we want to be a part of this. They don't really have a choice, right? Because it's coming here. So like it would be of bad faith to not at least cover the World Cup and what's going on and do your best to be a part of that, all these media organizations. But that's not really what we're talking about. Like, we're talking about everything else outside of that. Even if we're not in a World Cup phase, even if we're a couple of years away from a World Cup, it isn't put on the forefront. And I understand why, because the U.S. has a problem. And the U.S.'s problem is this. The MLS is not relevant if Messi isn't in it. Okay, if Messi leaves the MLS, if they don't have superstars in that league, the league itself just does not hold any weight. And so that's the hard thing for these American media outlets is that, okay, if the MLS isn't really pushing it for us, and when you look at the Premier League, yeah, a lot of people might watch soccer in the United States, but the loyalties and the allegiances are very scattered depending on where you look or who you look at. I mean, people just kind of choose teams depending on who they like. It's one of those situations. It's tough to target a specific market when you're talking about these certain teams or these certain players on the international scale that aren't American, by the way. I'm just talking Premier League here, that don't have to directly deal, that don't directly pertain to certain markets. Now, promoting individual players for the U.S. men's national team, absolutely. I think that should absolutely happen more often. I think we have a lot of characters that we could highlight and spotlight and at least give some sort of a nod to. But the biggest issue for me in my mind is the fact that there just isn't anything here in the US that really gets the soccer fans going. I'm just not that invested into Major League Soccer. And it's the other hard thing, and this is probably the biggest thing in my mind, when all of your best players are over in Europe, right? Let's say like the Pulisics, the Richards, the McKinneys, those players. When they're in Europe and they're playing for their clubs, how do we expect USA Soccer and the PR machine that we want, which I know that they have to create if they want any chance of being relevant in the conversation in the grand scheme of things, how are they supposed to get these guys to be in like commercials or do reads or do other things that get their faces out there a little bit more, or put them in the spotlight? It's a hard thing to do when they're all the way across the world and you're here in the
That's
U.S. and
not
not
true.
just across the world. I mean,
That's not
what do you
true.
mean
Why
that's
is
not true?
Bukayo Saka in every New Balance commercial? He's in England.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he's a superstar. I think he's on a different level than any
But wouldn't we
U.S. men's
consider
national
Pulisic a
team
superstar?
player. I think we would.
Yeah.
I think we would. And
why
like, why
are
is
we
he in the
putting
why is he in the
Mbappe,
commercial? Like,
Saka in these commercials that are in American airwaves, but Pulisic and
well,
them
you
aren't there,
can't
but they're
you can't
overseas.
you can't compare those to U.S. men's national team players. I mean, that's essentially the same as putting Messi in a commercial with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is going to
But
get more eyeballs from American viewers than
but you're
Christian
saying,
Pulisic
but
is. As
what
sad
you
as that
said,
is.
what you said was they're overseas. It's hard to do that. Yet we are seeing it. Endrick's in a couple of them. Mo Salah's in a couple. Like they're in all these New
Yeah,
Balance
that's fair.
commercials, but all those guys are overseas. Whether it's a player comparison or not, they're both overseas.
Yeah.
It ain't difficult for those companies to do it. Why can't Pulisic and
That's
McKennie
fair.
are over there, and so it's not difficult to get those guys. They're overseas,
Yeah.
and Pulisic
Yeah.
would absolutely do numbers here. He's an American. People know who Pulisic is because I've had friends who don't even watch soccer. They're like, what's Christian Pulisic up to? Like, is he still playing well and stuff? Like, people know who Pulisic is, whether they watch soccer
Mm-hmm.
or not.
Mm-hmm.
Pulisic would do.
Well, and
fine.
I guess maybe
maybe Pulisic doesn't want to do commercials. Maybe that's the case.
I guess maybe that's our bigger issue. Yeah.
But the thing is we promote non-American soccer players all the time. So
Yeah.
it ain't difficult about getting them because they're overseas.
But who would you say we promote the most
in terms of what? What player?
in terms of what player, like of all those that we just mentioned?
International? We're
Probably
talking USA
Messi.
players.
Probably Messi, right? In terms of the American media and the American landscape.
So you're
right?
you're asking what soccer player in the whole world does America promote the most? That's what you're asking.
Not in the whole world, but generally, like, who would you say that they promote the most in terms, whether it be jersey sales, commercials, anything?
If we're
here in the
talking
US?
a single
it would
soccer
be
player,
Messi.
it's Messi and Ronaldo.
Yeah,
Those are the
easily
main
be
two.
Messi.
But I
Yeah.
thought we were having a USA. I thought we were saying which.
We
soccer
are. My point is that he's here. My point is that he's playing in an American league. That's the point. Like the NBA is an American league. Major League Baseball is an American league. The National Football League is an American league. Like they have these major markets that immediately what they're talking about automatically pertains to them. That's why they talk about, and that's the thing, like people don't get it when it comes to the media. That's why they talk about LeBron. That's why they talk about the Cowboys. That's why because of the numbers. They follow the numbers. That's why they go by that. So it must be something there that they don't see that doesn't really necessitate them having to talk about it. That's the hard thing, like the support and the viewership and everything. That's my point, is that it's fragmented in the US versus some of these other sports have major hotspots and major markets that are more tangible to the media that they're like, we can actually go target. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be putting players. I think there's just a certain maybe insecurity from certain media outlets. Like I would have that insecurity if I was Pat McAfee talking to soccer players. Truth is, he just doesn't know that much, So for him, it's like, why would he put himself in a position like that? And I'm sure I could probably talk about other shows just like that, but that is, that's the other hard thing though too.
I mean, McAfee should feel insecure. He's a professional national spotlight person. If you're insecure about interviewing a soccer player, look, if a what's a sport that I don't know. If a lacrosse player wanted to be on our show, I know nothing about lacrosse. I did a couple lacrosse
Good
games
old
in
lax.
at CMU. Sure, I don't know much about the sport, but what am I doing for it? I am trying to teach myself at the same time. I'm asking basic questions. If you're a person in the media that feels insecure because someone wants to be on your show and you don't know anything about it, that's a you problem. Like if John all of a sudden was like, hey, we got Oakland women's lacrosse coming on the show. I don't know something about it. I'm just going to sit here
Yeah.
and be like, start asking questions so I could teach myself and then also listen well enough where I could bounce questions off. But it looks like I know that. Like if people are insecure about soccer, I mean that is their biggest issue. Then why would you feel insecure
No,
about the game of
yeah.
soccer? Like that makes no sense because once upon a time, I'm sure people felt insecure about Europeans playing basketball here in the NBA, and maybe some Puerto Ricans and Japanese players playing in the MLB. Sure, but now it's all accepted. So why aren't we accepting soccer? And ultimately, I think that's what the World Cup will eventually do for us. Is I think the game of soccer will ultimately be accepted in our country. But no, we do a horrible job of promoting all of our players. Like I bet you majority of Americans know who Pulisic is, and that's it. I bet you that's it. No one know. I bet you a bunch don't know who Weston McKennie is. Look, we have some of these players, Weston and Pulisic and Richards to be specific, who are absolutely killing it. And I mean killing it in their top leagues. Would I say they're superstars? Richards, I would say no, but Pulisic, I think, is a superstar in Serie A. You could maybe make the case that Weston McKennie is just outside of a superstar in Serie A with what he's doing. So there's no lack of superstars. So how do we get these guys over here? Instead of putting my goat Bukayo Osaka in damn New Balance commercials or Endrick in New Balance commercials, throw Weston, throw a Chris Richards. Enough of throwing all these other guys in it. If you want the game to, if I'm U.S. Soccer, promote that.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, does it really sell? Does it really sell to? I mean, for our purposes, a little bit different, right? Because our focus is on soccer. At least here in hour number one, we get into hour two, it's all sports. But our focus on this show is soccer. And so when people come here, they expect to hear about updates about U.S. men's national team players. Same case with, we listen to Alexi Lalas. Little surprise coming up a little bit later on about that. Landon Donovan. We also got Tim Howard. We got a lot of former players that have podcasts and talk shows of their own. We know what to expect when we go there. But from a general American audience perspective, again, for places like ESPN, it is hard for them simply because, again, they are going by the numbers.
The simple solution
And
is
if you go
this:
by the numbers,
if you're a media company or you're a company that wants to promote their product, whether that's clothes, food, beer, whatever it is, because for some reason Messi's in Michelob Ultra commercials, it doesn't even say a word, and Lowe's commercials, he doesn't even say a word. Walk into a youth soccer tournament that has like 30, 40 fields, and just walk around and see what jerseys they're wearing. Majority will say Messi and Ronaldo, majority, but then you got to look at who's the third. And I bet you I haven't been to a youth soccer tournament in a couple of years, but I will tell you this: as I was leaving the game of soccer in the youth game, I'll tell you there's a handful of Pulisic jerseys that I saw of little kids walking around. And when you
oh
go
yeah,
to like the little the pop up tents of jersey sales, and again those jerseys sucked, but like in terms of quality, but like the three that were up there, Pulisic, Messi, Ronaldo. There's no way you can't promote Pulisic in this country and not get numbers. There's no way. Again, we could obviously we do not know Pulisic personally. Maybe he does not want to do. Maybe he's like Eminem and just doesn't want to do commercials. Maybe he doesn't. But at the same time, I don't think Messi wants to do any commercials in the United States. But you know what? That guy's in the boys movie, and in the like the promotion of it. He's in Lowe's commercials and he's in Mick Ultra commercials. If Messi ain't want to do it, then Pulisic, there ain't an excuse for you. And you can't come out and bitch about it. That I remember Pulisic bitch about there's not enough fans in the stadium. Well, maybe promote yourself. Promote your own brand, the U.S. men's national team by maybe doing some commercials, and then people will start to like, man, I really like this Pulisic guy. Let's see what he does. But maybe a lot of people just know Pulisic is being bitchy about it in the media. So yeah, that could be another turnoff for him. But there's no way we can't promote American soccer players when we're promoting overseas players.
Yeah,
No way. And
it
Endrick
probably
ain't no
would.
damn
It would.
superstar. I'll tell you that.
It would do numbers for American soccer fans, but would it do numbers for the general American audience? Stacked up against the likes of LeBron James and Jerry West. I don't know. I
Jerry
hope it would, and
West?
I hope that changes.
Jerry West? When did he retire? Like the 80s? Why are we comparing Jerry West?
The logo. The
Jerry
NBA.
West ain't in no commercial ads, not that I know of.
That was